DJI is a brand which I trust, a brand of which I have a drone, or well, had a drone. Subscribe so I can buy a new one. Today I'm comparing the DJI Osmo Action 3 to the GoPro Hero 11 Black. Now DJI asked me to do this comparison, and you know, when a company asks you to do a comparison, they think their product is better than the competitor. They sent me the Adventure combo, which includes 2 spare batteries, a battery charging case which looks pretty smart, and this super long selfie looking stick kind of thing. Now this is my honest opinion. I didn't pay for this one, I did pay for this one, but if either of them isn't good, I will be telling you the truth. First of all, the price. This DJI camera is £309 alone, or £400 for the Adventure combo, which includes those 2 spare batteries. The GoPro, on the other hand, is £500 for the camera alone, or £700 with the Creator Edition. But you get a discount if you buy the GoPro subscription, which brings the prices down to £400 and £580 respectively. But that being said, the difference between these cameras in price is massive. It's £200 to £300, which in the price of these cameras themselves, this is almost half of the price of this camera. Design wise, they're both pretty similar. The GoPro has a 27 megapixel sensor on the front with an LCD screen. It has these folding fingers on the bottom, so you can pop any accessories in here, twist the screw like normal, and that's how you attach things onto this GoPro camera. There's a latch on the side which houses the battery, the micro SD card, and the USB-C port. This is meant to come off, I promise. Now this latch is super tight and it really does ruin my nails. It doesn't ruin them in a, oh, I've just done my nails kind of way, but in a, you really have to dig them in to open this, and it actually hurts. Also, maybe I've got chubby fingers, but I kind of struggle to get the SD card out of here sometimes. The DJI Osmo Action 3 looks kind of similar, has this funky big Cyclops looking eye on the front of it, which has a lens cover on the front. It also has 2 LCD screens, one on the front, one on the back. But on this camera, both of them are touch screens, which is quite cool because it means you can control things from the front as well. It has 2 side compartments which open by pressing a button and sliding up, so that opens like that. This one on here contains the battery and the micro SD card, and the one on the other side contains the USB-C port, which is for charging and for putting accessories into. To attach this camera to accessories, there are magnets on the bottom of it. So that's quite a cool thing. I've never had a DJI Action camera before. So to be able to attach it with magnets and detach it by pressing these 2 buttons, releasing the magnets, makes it a really fast, easy way to do that. The GoPro is waterproof up to 10 meters, can shoot up to 5.3K in 60 frames per second and 4K 120 frames per second, and can shoot photos at 27 megapixels. The Osmo Action 3 is waterproof up to 16 meters, can shoot up to 4K in 120 frames per second, and has a massive sensor so it can do 10-bit color like the GoPro can as well, and it shoots 12 megapixel stills. So TLDR, the GoPro has a 27 megapixel camera compared to the 12 megapixel camera on the DJI device for shooting stills. It can shoot in 5.3K, whereas the DJI is limited to 4K. I say limited, I don't know who's shooting in 5.3K. Now footage quality, I'm gonna let the footage do the talking here. And by that I mean, I'm still gonna do the talking, but have a look at this footage. Here is both cameras in 4K at 30 frames per second. We're currently shooting in 4K at 30 frames per second, so this is what that looks like. This is what I would normally be shooting in, so if I'm using a camera like this, this is what I'd normally be shooting in. Here is both cameras at 4K in 24 frames per second. Here is both cameras at 4K in 120 frames per second, which can be slowed down to a super slow-mo sexy shot. Here is both cameras in 1080p at 30 frames per second. Bear in mind the GoPro can actually go a level up from this, and it can go up to 5.3K, but how often are you using 5.3K footage? For me, not very often, because that is a massive file size and something I do not want to deal with. Now both cameras have 10-bit color, but the colors on both are really different. I would say the GoPro has more depth of color. It certainly has more contrast in the colors as well, and the dark parts are really dark. The DJI, on the other hand, probably has more neutral neutral colors. It's probably more natural and realistic to actually what I was seeing at the time. Straight out of the camera onto my Instagram, which one would I prefer? I think I would probably prefer the footage from the DJI camera, if I'm honest. Now, audio is super important to me because I mainly use these cameras for vlogging. So I need to be able to not have to attach an external microphone and still get good audio out of it. And that's been the problem with action cameras in the past, is that their audio has been trash. However, I can say that when you're close to both of these cameras, the audio quality is fantastic. Have a listen to this and let me know which one you think is better. This is what the microphone sounds like on the GoPro Hero 11 Black, and this is what the microphone sounds like on the DJI Osmo Action 3. Looking at both of the screens in front of me, I can tell that this DJI screen is much bigger, it's much brighter, it's much easier to see actually what I look like. The GoPro screen is much smaller in front of me. It also keeps dimming and turning off, which is probably a setting that I can adjust. See, I would say the GoPro probably has more depth of audio quality, but the DJI camera has that lightness and that sharpness. For example, you can hear the saliva going around in my mouth, like that noise on the audio from the DJI camera, which is what I kind of like because it reminds me of the more professional microphones. So if I was going to pick one, I would say they're both pretty similar, but I'd probably choose this microphone out of personal preference, but I could understand why someone might want to go for that one instead. Now, I don't take a ton of photos with action cameras, but occasionally you get to the top of a mountain and you do think, I wish I could take a photo of this, and you whip out your action camera and you take a photo. So you need to make sure it can take good photos. Bear in mind what I said before, this has a 27 megapixel camera, the GoPro, the DJI has a 12 megapixel camera. So there technically should be some difference here, although the DJI does have a bigger sensor. I took some stills and I can honestly say when they're both in linear mode, which should be the same, so it shouldn't be a fisheye view, it should be sort of more of a flat view. I kind of still preferred the pictures from the DJI camera. The DJI one makes it look like the photos are coming from a camera. The GoPro makes it look like the photos are coming from an action camera. But again, could be subjective. Let me know which one you prefer. Now, in terms of using these cameras, both of the cameras have two screens, a screen on the front and a screen on the back. On both of them, the screen on the back is a touch screen which you can use to control the camera. You change things like the resolution, like the lens if you want it wide or you want it narrower, like the mode from camera to video to time lapse. On the front of the DJI camera, the LCD screen is actually also touchscreen, which is cool when you're shooting something and you can just change the footage there rather than having to turn the camera around. The DJI camera is generally a lot easier to use in my opinion, and I've used GoPros pretty much for as long as I can remember, but it's still a bit fidgety and a bit less responsive than this one. And I think one of the things that really stood out to me is that during the testing, I had to do a lot of changing settings. To change this one from 4K 30 frames per second to a 120 frames per second, it's 2 clicks. 1 click, 2 clicks. To change the GoPro from 4K 30 frames per second to 4K 120 frames per second, it took 4 clicks. And I don't see why it should take so long to do that. It's quite a simple thing, something I would have to do in my real life quite a lot when using these cameras, and it just takes longer doing it. Now, both of these cameras have inbuilt stabilization, both with fancy names. GoPro calls theirs Hyper Smooth and DJI calls theirs Rock Steady. Both of them are again amazing, and it looks like you're using a gimbal with whichever one you choose to use. It honestly is so stable in every circumstance in which I tried it. This is what the footage looks like without any stabilization on each camera. This is what the footage looks like with the first level of stabilization on each camera. And now this is what the footage looks like with the second level of stabilization on each camera. Now, I watched the footage over and over and I could hardly tell a difference between the two. I think my preference for the stabilization probably does go to the GoPro, which I think was very slightly better, but again, could be argued. Both cameras also have horizon locking, which again is super cool, but the horizon locking on the GoPro is far superior. And the reason for that is because you can do the horizon locking on the GoPro up to the maximum resolution, so up to 5.3K, whereas on the DJI, you can only do it up to 2.7K. So if you're shooting in 4K, you can't do the horizon locking. And when that is useful is, for example, if you are on a bike or motorbike, or if you are on a boat ship and you want that horizon to stay level, if you want to shoot in 4K and above, you can only do that on the GoPro. Here's an example of what the horizon locking looks like on both cameras. And at the higher resolutions, you can still do some horizon leveling, but it's the locking specifically that I think you can't do. I'll be honest, and neither of these cameras are that good in low light. In fact, I actually think my iPhone 13 Pro Max is better in low light than both of these cameras. However, the GoPro comes with lots of fancy night modes, which were not there in a previous edition of the GoPros. You may have seen this in my GoPro review video with things like the light drawing, which is a bit gimmicky, but quite cool. The night time lapses, the star trails, and also the car trails as well. That is not gimmicky at all. That is actually very cool and quite an advanced cinematography thing to be able to do. You can make something that looks like the intro to House of Cards from a simple action camera. So again, some additional features that you don't necessarily get on the DJI. Now, a lot of people ask about the battery. The DJI has a 1770 milliampere hour battery compared to the GoPro 1720 battery. Now, from my experiences from these cameras, the battery life was pretty similar, but I think the battery life on the DJI just seemed to be a little bit more reliable and actually last for that length of time. Whereas on the GoPro, on occasion it wouldn't be turning on, or I would leave it with battery, and a few days later, where has that battery gone? But it's to be expected when using GoPros. Now, in summary, I think both of these cameras are great choices, and I think if you've got one rather than the other, I don't think you would need to get the other one. But if you're trying to choose between the two, I think they're made towards different consumers. I think the DJI device is made for someone who wants to take this on holiday, who wants to be a vlogger, or is looking for their first or second action camera. This is the perfect device for you. The GoPro may be something to consider for more of a professional filmmaker, or someone who wants it for a very specific reason, who wants the top end of device with all the bells and whistles, including those night modes, but is willing to pay twice the price for it. So now that I have both of these cameras, which one will I be taking away on holiday? To be honest, I think this one, the DJI camera. And the reason for that is because I like that it can magnetically attach to its mounts rather than having to screw in. That's pretty cool. I like that the touchscreen is more sensitive and actually does what I want it to do. I like that I don't break my fingernails when I'm trying to take the SD card out, and I like that the battery is more reliable when I've used it. So I'm going to be taking this one on my next adventure, but either one is a great choice. If you are interested in tech and tech videos, I'm making a whole channel just about tech, and I'll be making a ton of more videos about both of these cameras. You can find that channel around here somewhere, and I will link it in the description and in the comments as well. Like the video if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Look how long this stick is. There's a latch on the side that houses. I like that you can magnetically, I tried to make that smooth and it wasn't smooth. And the reason for that is because I like that you can magnetically